All right. Hi, everyone, and thank you for coming here. I just want to check before we start, all you students, are you from MBA? Which stream majorly all the students are from? MBA, and what year? Any particular year, or is it a mixed kind of audience?
Prashant, it is a mixed
Yep.
participants this time, and they are from MBA of second year and MBA fourth year
All right,
together.
got it. Yep. Can I just ask one simple question? Can you raise a hand if how many of you have a financial degree background before MBA? Yep. Right. A few. And how many of you have engineering or any technical background? Right. A few. Can I just ask what other backgrounds that people have before their MBA? Can I get some shout outs?
Prashant, please repeat your question.
Can I just understand what other backgrounds? Because I saw there are few financial people, few engineering, but a lot of them are from other streams.
Okay, so
Can I understand what streams they are coming from?
Yeah, so other streams. What are your background streams? No, the current MBA marketing and
Marketing, finance, and HR, and IT.
okay, and your
Okay.
previous
Yep. Thank you.
okay.
Thank you so much. So I'm gonna share my screen and just gonna get a little bit started. So before I start the actual presentation, a little bit about myself. So I run this company called Xenabler. We are sort of like a combination of tech advisory and software development. What does that really mean? So in companies you have in India, software development is a new thing, not a new thing. So a lot of us, we know what software development companies do. What we don't see much in India is a very specialized thing is technical advisory. And it's sort of taken for granted in many cases. Because what happens is that you can code, you can build anything. Problem is what you are creating, is it worth creating? Is it going to generate a business? And is it actually going to make money? And as an MBA students, this is the question that usually you guys fill in. Whether you have technical background, whether you have financial business background or whatever, the key question that we always get asked is, yes, it's a great system. It will work fantastically, but should it be built? And is it going to benefit? If yes, can it actually generate revenue? Can it make money? Can it sustain? Can it grow? And these are the questions that are often overlooked when a business is created. And because of that, if you look at the statistics, almost 98% of the startups fail. There are a lot of businesses who go bankrupt in first 3 years of running the business. And this is because they haven't answered the fundamental question that comes to any business. Whatever you are serving, do you have a right audience? What you are creating, people actually want that product or not? And are they willing to pay for that product? Now, without these important questions, doesn't matter what you create, it's only going to be a beautiful piece of technology that nobody wants to use. It's going to be a solution to a problem that nobody has. And you need to make sure that that is there to actually start with. So what's the role of technology? And what we're going to talk about today particularly is that why all this hype about technology? What is going on? Why everybody's talking about you need to be in tech, you need to have tech, you need to chase tech. All the fundings, all the talks, all the jobs that are having technology aspect in them these days, and why it is such an integral, important part of the business is what we're going to talk about today. So the topic is basically how technology created world's first $1 trillion company. So this is going back to around 2018 when Apple showed their financial and they were valued at $3 trillion, which is actually the first time in the history where a company is actually valued more than $1 trillion. And why that was possible so long after, like businesses has been happening before, prior to industrial ages, like in 1800s, late 1800s, IBM and all that, they were found in early 1900s. They've been running for more than 120 years now. But why did it took so long for a business to become, like we had Ford, we had IBM, we had like so many other big companies that came and became like giants. But then how did in the last 30 years that we saw the rapid growth of all these businesses, and it allowed us to achieve the growth and the scale that we are experiencing today. So that's what we're going to talk about. So let's go to fundamental fact of what is business. First and foremost, what is business? So a book's definition of business is business is defined as an organization or an enterprising entity engaged in commercial, industrial, or professional activities. What does that mean? So you are doing something that is commercial, that is related to commerce, with the money, with industry. You are producing something, or you are providing some sort of professional services, consultancies, all of that. So you are having an operation that converts that into revenue. Now, if you look at that, as simple as it sounds, most people miss this fundamental fact that if you have an operation, you're not doing it for hobby, you're not doing it just for fun, you're not doing it for research. If you're finding something new technology and all that, that's a field of research. Whether that research can be monetized or not will decide whether that can be utilized in a business. So business is very different to just research or study or anything like that. So unless you have a revenue aspect in it, it's really not a business, and it might be a non-for-profit. So whatever revenue you are generating, you are distributing that for your expenses, or further advancing the organization, or whatever the cause that you represent. So this is another very important distinction, and it's about revenue. It doesn't say profit, it says revenue, that you need to generate revenue. So what happened in business world? If you look at traditional businesses, they were all about creating stuff. So manufacturing, distribution, providing physical goods around the country, around the town, around the locality. But the problem was, because of the lack of faster transportation, communication, and the network, it was limited. So the market was local and the outreach was limited. And because of that, there were no big enterprises in those era, because it was very hard to actually use these technologies, and the technologies didn't exist that can allow you to scale them to a mass and go above and beyond. That's when computers came, and particularly internet, this changed and it became digital business. So when digital businesses came, the manufacturer was still there, but the distribution and the providing those services across the border, across the globe, became much more easier. It became more streamlined, and the outreach increased quite significantly. Now that was also that was a fundamental shift from traditional industrial age businesses to those businesses, but it got on steroid in last, I would say, 10 to 15 years, not more than that, when mobile really came, when the mobility really came. So what mobility did, and as you can see firsthand in India, mobile growth in India has been the fastest around the world. And the reason is, a lot of these old other countries, they had this old infrastructure of telephone, other type of network and all that were yet to be monetized when mobile came. So they had this question of do we focus on monetizing the infrastructure that we spend so much years and money to create, or do we just adopt mobile? Versus in India, that infrastructure wasn't adequate. We didn't have fiber optics all around the place when mobile came. Most of us didn't even have basic internet back then, or it was like a dial-up and it was very slow. So this presented an opportunity that it can grow in any area much faster than any other country. And it did not have to worry about legacy infrastructure and all that. And the mass adoption opened up a new consumer base that was unreachable before for all these global brands, global businesses. And that really accelerated the growth. So what we understood out of all this is that the role of technology is to scale faster, it's to scale better, and give the reach across borders, across markets, across consumers. And that provides us variety. So technology enables growth and scale. That's a fundamental nature and the benefit of technology. Now, why and how this is changing the industry now and probably in next 10 years? Because as we know, Industry 1.0 was about creating. Industry 2.0 was about consuming and contributing. When Industry 3.0 applications came, which is like computers, mobile, internet, all of that, it became much more interactive. So if you look at when I graduated in 2004, we were just consuming information of internet. I don't remember putting articles or putting lectures on the internet and all that. It was all about consuming. When the mobile came and when all these social media and all that revolution came, it became contributing as well as consuming. Obviously, consuming increased a lot more, but most of you upload photos, you have social media streams. Some of you might be bloggers, some of you might be social media influencer. You have trends, you contribute a lot of this information rather than just consuming it. So it became a two-way street. What is happening now with blockchain and AI and the next generation of what we call Industry 4.0 kind of technology is it is changing from just interacting, consuming, and contributing to actually monetizing. So right now, if you look at all this information we are creating, we don't get anything back. All the profit goes to Facebook, Google, TikTok, all these giant companies. What is changing fundamentally now is that rather than just giving data for free or not having any control on what data you can give, how that data is used, monetized, and made money on, you can actually have a say that, okay, you made money through my data, then I need a portion of that. And that's what the next Industry 4.0 revolution is. So what is it doing around the world? So if you look at this, 5.3 billion active internet users today. Now compare that to before internet or even 2010 or before mobility. We had less than close to 1 billion users before the mobile came. And within those years, we just scaled from 1 billion to 5.3 billion users. That means the business opportunity and the new consumer base just expanded fivefold. And that just opens up so many possibilities that were not present before. So it gives you new type of business, it gives you new business models, it gives you the outreach that you didn't have. It provides you to be able to serve the user where they are, how they want, in a way they want to access the service. So the personalization and the customization came in place. Obviously, it went a bit too far now. And if I'm just thinking a model of the car, I know that tomorrow I'm going to get the ad of it. So the personalization has also caused a lot of intrusion. 90% of the world's data was only created in last 5 years. Now, this is if you look at this is astonishing. If you think at how much data is there, and then we think, oh yeah, we've been creating this data since internet came. But the fact is 90% of the data has only been created in last 5 years after this influencers, social media, Y2K generation, the people who really are internet native citizens. When I grew up, I think internet only came in 2003, more popular in India. When I was graduating, I was in third year when we started accessing it more actively and then looking for the information and all that. Still, we had to go to internet cafe and all that. It was still pretty limited. And if you look at now, you guys have literally like, you are facing it firsthand, like you are already know that it exists. For you, it's not something that got introduced. It existed when you were there. 70% of, and when we talk about technology, I want to put a bit of distinction here. And sorry, I misplaced one slide, but I want to go to this slide before I come back to the numbers. So when we talk technology, we often mistake technology as information technology. Now, that is not true, because technologies have a different area, and all sort of things. Information technology is just part of it. So information and communication technology is one part. Health and biotech is another segment of technology. Machine and power, electric, all sort of technologies, that is another wing, major wing. One wing that we didn't really classify before, but is becoming very, very powerful these days, is environmental tech or sustainability technology, which is growing day by day, because the focus on global warming, sustainability has taken some major, attraction from the around the world, that it is very, very important that we respect and preserve our nature. Otherwise, we don't have a future. So that has really grown in last 5-10 years, in physics and space technology, because there is a part of us that says we will save the world, but there's another wing that says maybe it's too late and we're probably going to lose Earth sooner or later. And people are exploring Mars and other planets to consume. So when I talk about technology, please think in a broader term, like anything that advances the technology or the infrastructure that we currently have and takes it to the next level is a technology. It doesn't have to be just computer, just information technology. So let's come back to numbers. So in biotech, through the vaccines and all that, there are also like, there are other form of like technology that is advancing in biotech, particularly the genome edit, which is controversial and we talk about it a lot. But when they did a survey, I think this was done 2 years back, but 70% of the users said that they wouldn't mind taking a medicine to enhance their mental and physical strength, if that means they have better chance at getting a job, or like, increasing their job prospect, or like, get a better opportunity. And which is, if you look at that, like, these pills actually exist. In US, there are companies who actually use this quite a lot as well. And it has been in controversy in last 2-3 years, that should it be legal, or is it ethical? Is it morally correct? If someone is getting a stimulus and then it is competing against someone who is just like, going on the natural ability. So the demand for the livestock, now livestock is bit different, but if you think about the farm produce in US, there's a KPMG has made a prediction that by 2030, it will reduce by 70%. And that means the traditional farming industry will become unsustainable. The reason is, already we are seeing the plant-based protein and meat creation. There's a laboratory created printed food, literally. That technology is advancing really, really fast. And what that says is that by 2030, that technology will reach to a level where the traditional way of growing meat or any form of vegetable will not actually stack up. It will be cheaper to actually print the food or create the food artificially. If that happens, that literally changes the way we think about industries that we think are never gonna go. Like particularly coming from a farmer's family, I always think that, look, farmers never gonna go out of job because everybody needs food. But looking at this, you can see that the pace of technology and the stage of technology where we are, it is reaching a stage where whatever shifts are coming are radical, are completely changing the way the world works. And in next 10-20 years, this will impact all of us. We will see the world that is completely different to what we are seeing right now, or even what we might imagine. And 60% of the people think that most of the people wouldn't have any stable or long-term job in the future. Now, this is not saying that they will be jobless, right? These are very different things. But if you look at like even after COVID, the way workforce is behaving has completely changed. It has opened up to the possibility and the fact that we can work remotely. I'm delivering this lecture remotely, and I don't think 5 years ago a lot of us have welcomed that fact. We haven't been able to warm up to this whole idea of digital connectivity before as much as what COVID has forced us to. And this is only increasing. And what is increasing with that is that the way people are generating their income. And remote is one thing, but also gig works. You look at Swiggy, Uber, Ola, all these are gig works. They are not jobs. They are just basically, I'll work when I want to work. I will not work when I don't want to work. And I can just turn on, start working, make money, and then turn off. Now, that has only started, like we think that, okay, it's only limited to delivery and those kind of things, but it is increasing. The logistic industry is adapting more and more to this ad hoc type of jobs and a gig work. IT industry is definitely in that. You can hear good and bad news about people doing 2-3 jobs without knowing employer knowing it. There are people, but the thing is, given the opportunity that we have presented, people who are smart, for them, it makes much more sense to do this gig work and generate much more revenue and a growth in their career. And it's becoming more and more acceptable and common. So that is also a type of technology-led change that is taking us to the next era of how the employment or HR will work. This is also a question that Ketki can tell you, we had stories where there were questions like, how do you manage this workforce that you haven't seen? They're remote, they're working on their own, and how do you track them? How do you track time? How do you measure the KPI for them? What are the ways you can actually incentivize them? How do you make them feel connected to the company? There are so many things that we need to think, not only from technology perspective, but from HR perspective, from morally acceptable practices perspective, in terms of operation and so on. And it is changing. It is the way it is going is changing a lot. And what is happening from the company's perspective is that we are seeing more and more unicorns coming out from the industry, like the new companies that we never heard of, like ChatGPT, OpenAI. That company nobody heard of, and now it is is probably going to be one of the unicorn. It's already a unicorn, but it's going to be one of the biggest company that we'll work with in next 10, 20, 50 years. So new companies are able to disrupt the market easily. The thing is, it is providing the opportunity to disrupt the industry, which were not present before. And there are few examples of that we'll go through. So again, we covered that technology is not just IT, it's all these different kind of technology streams that is included in that. So why technology, what does it do that allows us to do all these cool things, grow quicker, faster, and broader? So one is it provides efficiency. What was taking days and months is taking less time. Transportation obviously is one of them, but also data-driven operations and robotic and the automation-driven operations provide the efficiency that we never had before. You can ask any of your parents, they worked before computers came, and you can ask them how they used to do work in banks or anything that was financial and accounting. They had to manually just calculate everything and all that. Nowadays, bankers don't even know that they had to do that. They just have numbers ready for them to just work on. And they're spending more time in selling these services rather than operating, getting the services operated. This is a fundamental shift because if you look at banks' profits, and it has been controversy that banks are highly profitable even down through the down times and through the up times. Making money has become so much easier. The reason is because if you look at the cost of the banks before the technology came, a lot of that was running the operations, and it is reducing day by day. Even in Western world, ATMs are going away. People are going cashless. All of this is getting automated. Like, people are going online and serving themselves. So they need less workforce. They need less, paperwork. They need less kind of operational cost, and which is adding to their profit every day. And it is all led by technology. We are basically adding to that efficiency, and there's nothing that we get back, which is the downside of it. But that efficiency allows you to increase the profit margin, which is the second point on the down, first on the bottom row. So by utilizing technology, you look at Amazon. Amazon is able to deliver you goods like cash on delivery, returns as you want, and it's cheaper than what you would buy in the shop anyway. So that allows you the efficiency of the operation that is cutting down the traditional business completely and completely radicalizing how we shop, how we operate, how we consume the services, and how we buy goods. Market outreach, which we keep talking about, like Amazon spread over like the globe much faster after the mobiles came on, because it had trouble reaching the consumer. It had limited access to markets like India or China, where internet wasn't a common place. But as soon as mobile came and internet became available on our fingertip, this opened up a market that was not there before. And all these companies just grew tenfold and furthermore. Scale. So the scale of operation that is led by technology is another big thing. If you look at Uber, if you look at Ola, they don't own any infrastructure. Any two-way marketplaces, Airbnb, the number of other examples of two-way marketplaces, they don't have any infrastructure. They just created an ecosystem under which a consumer and a supplier can operate with a framework that is acceptable by both parties. And that allowed them to scale much more than traditional taxi industries or logistic industries, and surpass all of them in just a span of 10 years. And they will even go further. There's a study that almost 80% of the vehicle by 2030 in US will be operated as a transport as a service. What it means is people will stop owning the car. Now, it looks far-fetched, but if you look at the pace, how self-driving cars are going on, once the self-driving car becomes completely authorized, that yes, you can drive and you don't need a driver present in the vehicle, the technology advances there, the way we use transport will completely change, because it will not require the human force that is used right now in logistic industry, which is a completely it just transforms the industry completely. It breaks down all the traditional ways of how logistic is thought as people heavy, complex, and all that goes away. I can just order a car that come and pick me up and take me to the office, and then take the kids to the school or to the tuition, and and it can do different things. It doesn't need to come back. So that shared utilization of all these resources becomes possible, which is not possible right now. So it gives you scale, it gives you transformation. There was article by Ford, not article, but the announcement by Ford earlier last year, that they are finding that their cost of producing electric vehicle is higher, so they not going to invest much more in the electric vehicle and focus on the traditional vehicle management. Now, on paper, it may look good, but if you look at the way industry is going, that means Ford might lose large market share to companies like Tesla and Volvo and all these companies that are coming out, BYD and all that are coming out with the electrical vehicle, and they will completely transform the industry. The way vehicles are operating, it became software first, which was a completely hardware product. And the thing that is happening because of technology, it moves so fast that it provides this window of opportunity far more often than it used to do in the era before all this technology was available. Risk minimization and better decision making. Now, these are two combined with each other. Why? Because the way you and I make decision versus how Google makes decision to continue, discontinue, or expand the product is data driven, and they will always win because data never lies. So if you have large enough data that allows you to make decisions that are more likely to go right than wrong, then you always gonna have better results. And that means the gap between people who have access to this data and people who don't have access to this data is getting wider and wider. And that's why all these companies are becoming more and more powerful and getting more revenue versus smaller businesses are going bankrupt. So why technology? What is this hype about technology in the business and all of that? Now, I wanted to present you a graph here actually, but it was an 8-minute long video. So I skipped that, but I'm going to verbally tell you what happened. So if you, and many of you might have seen this over the internet, there's a graph going around that shows you the largest companies by market share since 1975 to 2020. And if you look at these companies, you can see in 70s, 80s, manufacturing was big. Then the electronics became big around 90s and 2000. Then it slowly shifted to technology and the IT and computer engineering companies. And now, if you look at it, it's all about data, AI, and companies who control this data and use that for finance, for anything that can supercharge the services. So let's look at our main use case that we kept talking about. So before we do that, let's go through why technology. So it enables global outreach to provide large audience, as we discussed, rather than providing in certain countries and in a limited audience, you can now just create a service like Uber did or Airbnb did. They just scaled globally overnight without much change. They had infrastructure. They didn't need to change much apart from handling currencies and handling other networks. But apart from that, they didn't have to go and hire a lot of people or anything before they penetrated the new market. And that means they can achieve growth in a much simpler way than traditional industries can. It provides insights at a micro level. And when I say micro level, think about all the ads that we see on our social media stream. They're all personalized. They are targeted specifically to the user who is using that particular device. Now, that level of outreach and availability of the data that this guy is currently trying to buy this particular car or this particular camera or this particular phone is really, really far-fetched. And that allows you to monetize that more and more. The speed and efficiency to provide good. So if you look at adoption curve in technology, when computers came, it took about 30, 40 years before computers were adopted. When internet came, the adoption curve was around 20 years or something. When blockchain came, the adoption curve was still around less than 10 years. And if you look at now, the way where AI has reached, or ChatGPT reached 1 million users within 1 week. So it just provides the growth and the scale and the efficiency and speed of the growth that is shortening day by day. People are able to know what is happening around the world in a matter of minutes. And it just becomes viral. We all talk about these viral things, but these viral trends really add to business growth, where it is correct solution to the problem that everyone has, and it is easily available. It grows at the fast pace, and that provides the market to be disrupted faster. And we talked about companies like Apple that partially disrupted Microsoft, although Microsoft has pivoted into many more areas and it is gaining much more share. But Tesla is a classic case. If you look at Tesla, I don't think any of us anticipated that industry like car or like, vehicle can be disrupted in our lifetime. But when Tesla came, it literally just did what we call that is a vertical integration. So when we say vertical integration, that means rather than saying what the current products are, how can we improve it, they fundamentally changed that product. So they changed the way actual engine works completely. If you look at electric car parts, they're much smaller than what the traditional car parts are. The maintenance is different. It became a software first product. The sensors are driving all the decision making and the way the drive feels. The efficiency of the vehicle, the maneuvering of the vehicle is all software driven, which was traditionally or hardware and precision driven based on the sensors they fit inside the hardware. Now it all becoming software. And even in Tesla as well, if you look at first model of Tesla and right now, they're taking away the sensors. I don't know if you know this, but the model of Tesla is getting cheaper and cheaper because the visual reasoning and visual spatial senses that they have, they're becoming so powerful that they just need camera and look around to make decisions and do all the safety measures rather than relying on the sensors to tell you that there's a vehicle in the front or there's a pedestrian coming across the road. And it is gaining so much value compared to the traditional car industry, and it's disrupted over the span of like few years only. So I want to leave you with this thought, and with this thought we'll probably discuss one use case as well. So technology will continue to change the world. We all know that, and I think we all accept that. But we should all make sure that it changes it for better. And I want to show you why this is important. So let's go back to the first thing that we talked about, Apple. When Apple came, Apple didn't become successful in their Macs for many, many years. It actually went bankrupt. And as I don't know if many of you might know, Steve Jobs was actually fired as a CEO. And he was brought back and he worked behind the scene to create iPod, which was the first smart device Apple launched. And then from iPod came the iPhone, and then the game changed completely. Now, if you look at that, we think that Apple is a hardware and a technology company. But if you look at it right now, the most revenue that Apple generates is not from technology or not from hardware. It generates most revenue from its finance service. And you would think Apple doesn't have financial services. So we use Google Pay, Apple Pay, UPI without thinking. And it takes 30% of the share on those payments because it controls the consumer device. And that share is much more than the profit that it makes on that iPhone sale. So iPhone literally became like, the phones became like they just give you phone for free if they want to, and they would still make more money. So the way it disrupted financial services, music industry, hardware industry, and many, many other industries, it's just radical. And we don't think about all these different aspects. Like when iTunes came, the impact on the music industry is actually devastated because all the revenue that they were generating on selling individual records wiped away. Today, artists are having hard time to actually generating revenue because they are locked by all these Netflix and all these streaming providers, and they only need to go through them. So the way technology changes, it provides new opportunities, but it also provides threats to the existing industries and the ground stuff, the bottom line. So we need to make sure the technology creates changes for better and creates in a sustainable way, because this is a beast that is getting bigger and bigger and also very powerful. So keeping it tamed is our responsibility. Thank you. So any questions, anything? It can be about anything, doesn't have to be particular about this lecture or anything.
Yes, everyone. So how did you find the session? Yeah, louder, so that he will be able to listen to that. Informative.
Informative.
What
Is
else?
detailed.
Okay. You can stand so that he can see
Yeah.
you in that tiny this thing, because otherwise it's
Yeah.
too difficult for him.
Who's speaking, he able to understand.
So now ask a lot of questions directly from the horse's mouth, you know. He is into business, you are MBA students getting into the business, so try to understand as much as possible from him. So we are waiting for your questions now. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Prajakta. I'm from MBA. And my question to you is, what type of latest technologies does Exenabler uses to make decision making for better decision?
Yep. So I'll give you two-part answer to that. So XEnabler is not big enough that it requires data to do the decision making within the company. And that doesn't mean that we doesn't require data. We can basically the amount of the size of company that we have, even Excel sheet is good enough to make decision for ourselves. But being a technology company, what we do is we create systems for other companies, our clients, to do exactly this data-driven decision making. And the way we do it is the few different aspects to that. Now, if you look at any medium-sized businesses, now small-sized business, I personally identify is someone who has single business, single shopfront, and has a limited staff, and he is the operational person in that company. That is someone like me, because he has an outreach and the insight of entire company and entire workforce. So he doesn't need, the system doesn't add as much value. Now, when you go to medium-sized businesses, there are two layers of management. There's a top management who is trying to steer this ship, but the actual operations is handled by the second layer of management. And what happens in that case is everybody has a different style of management, so fragmentation happens. And also what happens is that these people, the way they take decision will be based on their limited visibility. So there's a problem of that you might have black spots or blind spots. In that case, the system can add value. And the type of system that we create is one, to take any decision making, you need data. So there are two types of data. One that comes from the operation. So in companies like XEnabler, think about how many developers are working, what project they are working on, how many hours they are putting against those projects, how much we are billing, what's the gross profit margin, what are the overhead costs on top of that. That will give you the financial data. The second is, if you look at financial data is not the only data that allows you to take the decision effectively. Now you need to go to human data. What is the churning rate in the company? Are employees staying for a longer period of time? What is the efficiency and the happiness level of the employee? And these are some of the data that is not easy to measure. So you need to put a system in place that allows you to measure and collect this data. Now, in a business like ourselves, that is the internal data that you can get. But if you go to any other business like retail, then you look at what are the festivals going on in the area? What is the weather going to be like? I have a restaurant, and we always look at the weather before ordering the vegetables, because we know that okay, it's going to rain, not enough people going to be dining, but there will be more takeaways. So we know that okay, our business, like the type of food that takeaway orders is different to what people order in dining. And in a coffee shop, things about if it's going to rain, it's going to decrease the revenue. If it's a sunny day, more people going to come out, and you will have higher foot traffic on that day. So when you create a decision making system, AI is definitely one and foremost. And nowadays there are a lot of tools that are available that allows you to just upload Excel sheets, put all the data sources from weather, public holidays, events, all of those kind of data that allows you to do better decision making. Things like Airtable and low code technologies are on the fastest growth in lot of those medium sized industries.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, please stay and ask as many questions as you can.
Very good morning, sir. Vidya Pawar, this side, placement manager, Amity Pune. So I would like to know the journey of XML.
Yep, journey. So my journey is very typical to like most of the immigrant software engineer, put it that way. In 2006, I came as a student. I did my telecommunication network masters here in University of Technology, Sydney. And in 2009-10, I started working in the workforce as a software developer. Now that time, mobile was a big thing. So I started like, playing with iPhone and all that, and I became one of the early mobile developers. All right. Now, I always wanted to do business, so we started like freelancing in 2011. We started taking freelancing projects, and then what happened is few people joined me. So Pradeep, who is handling all the India operation, his brother Ravi, they all joined me along this journey. By 2017, we were around like 6 freelancing guys who were just taking projects, and it became so big. We were like, all right, we need to leave our jobs and focus on this one. So Xenabler is a very bootstrapped and not really scaled up business in that way. It's had an incremental growth. It's after 2018 when we really started growing. And I think 2020 to 2022, there was a little bit of period where we were like, stagnant in our growth due to COVID. And then it started growing again. And now it is going much faster. What is interesting though, is that all the businesses that came out of Xenabler. So what happened is, while we were doing the software development for people, what we found is the technology knowledge and the business acumen that I have is particularly like useful and desired skill for many people. So the tech advisory business came out of that much later. And what happened is through that, we started creating our own ventures. And these ventures are powered by Xenabler technical team, but they're invested by third-party investors. So we create them, we put a board together, I become a technical advisor, we have a CEO who is handling that business. And there are now, since last year, we are spanning few different businesses where we find the opportunity and the ability for us to create new businesses. It's becoming a web of businesses rather than one business.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. This is so informative. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
You can come here so that he can also see. That's the right spot actually. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Samruddhi Karnad from MBA 2. Basically, my question is about obviously technology. You explained it very well. But what about over dependency on technology? I understand it is a
Yep.
need, we cannot
Yes.
deny it. But
Yes.
how can we keep human critical thinking and innovative thinking at a stage?
Yes, and thanks for this question. This is a very good question. So I'll give you a fun fact. So 3 days ago, my daughter is going for this high school entrance exam sort of, and she had to practice writing. So I gave her a topic saying, write a topic about if internet is to go forever, like it is to shut down forever, what will happen? And she had to like, persuade me if it is a good thing, bad thing, yes, no, why. And if we think about this is exactly what is happening. My daughter is 12 years old. She never knew that internet wasn't there before her time. When I actually told her that I'm older than Google, she couldn't believe it. So we are in a generation where it's taken for granted, and we are becoming overly dependent on that. Like the amount of time we actually look at our mobile, the numbers are crazy. I don't think we can change that or stop that completely. I'm a firm believer that things do change, and they do change at a rapid rate, particularly now. What we can do to stay fit is think about not just being dependent, but I always say that technology is a great servant, is a terrible master. And this is something we need to educate to not ourselves, our peers, our next generation, and whoever comes in contact with us. And particularly being in technology field, I find this as my responsibility, that I need to teach people that use technology, don't be used by technology. And that's the only way we can actually, like, that mindset, and every decision or everything that we do with the technology, if we can keep our mind clear that are we using technology or are we getting used, all right? Then the decision making becomes simpler. I wouldn't say it becomes like, it goes away, but it becomes simpler. So things like balance it out, similar to how we did in our diet. We don't stop eating junk food, but we balance it out. We eat healthy food alongside the food that we like. Same thing with technology. Use it for the productive reasons as well, while use it for, like, pleasure and the entertainment purpose. So limit, like, balance between both. Let's, like, focus on, and this is something I have been trying to teach my daughters as well. Like, whenever they ask me question, I give them a phone and say, can you Google it and tell me what you found and explain it to me. Now, these simple things creates a habit of learning, because we are in constant environment of, like, consuming what is fed to us rather than going and searching what we want to know or what we need to know. And we need to become a little bit proactive, that we are consuming the content that we decided rather than someone decided for us. Like when we scroll through TikTok reels or, like, Facebook walls and things like that, we are not deciding what we see. They are deciding for us. So don't always, like, be dependent and passive in that journey. Be proactive. Go and search the things you want to learn. Go and search for the things that you want to find. Be the fetcher of the information and user of the technology, not the other way around.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yep. Sorry, Ketki, the video is stuck, so I don't know what is going on, to be honest.
We can see you,
All right.
so you cannot see.
I mean, it is stuck. It's choked in between, so I can see bits and pieces.
Okay, so is there something wrong from our side here?
Yeah, all good. It's okay. Now it started moving. Okay.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes.
My question is regarding what role does leadership play in driving innovation within the organization, like particularly in the technology industry?
Yep. And I know there are a lot of people who will hate me for saying this in my business world. I always tell people that we are like the decision of technology is made by people who actually either hate or don't know the technology. And this is probably the biggest risk in business today. If you look at most of the CEOs, they're either lawyers or accountants. They're not really technology people. And they're taking all these decisions on technology, and that is affecting our everyday life. And that is probably the biggest problem, right? Because they're putting profit, they're putting data, and they're putting, like, the benefit, financial benefit against the moral obligation or the right thing that is supposed to be done. If you look at, like, 90s or 80s, you can't be a CEO of an engineering company if you are not an engineer. These days, who cares? Like, so I'm not saying that everybody needs to be an engineer. That's just like a skill set you might have acquired over a work or over job or something like that. What I mean is, the leadership is fundamental in seeing the company grow. And you can see this distinction very clearly. You look at all the biggest companies in technology companies in the world, Apple, Google, Amazon, there's common thing that you find against the company who are successful but didn't grow much. The difference is the founder of those companies were a technical and a person who knew technology, who can have that long-term vision of the company and can take risk which are like 10, 20 years in the future. They're not for today, because while technology is moving faster, OpenAI is a classic case. His CEO was fired by the board and they had to take him back because all the employees quit. They were like, we are not working against that CEO. Now that's the kind of culture that is important, and the leadership, the role of leadership, we can see that, and it goes in any size of the companies. Whatever you are doing, and I'm not saying just for like IT or anything. If you are making a decision on a farm and you are not a farmer, you don't know how the farm works, you're always gonna take some stupid decisions. So leadership does, like, if you look at me, I don't do operationally much. Like out of my 5 days, I hardly spend 2 days doing operational things. That does not mean that I don't work, because my role as a leader is to make sure that efforts are put in the right direction. People are putting the effort. My colleagues, my people, Ketki, Pradeep, Ashwin, these are the people who are making the stuff happen. All right. I'm not making stuff happen. What I'm doing is, when I have talked with these people, I just make sure they're all aligned and we are all working in a way, like the desired direction. And that direction is very well defined, nurtured, and provided. That's my role as a leader and any leader in the company. And that's why, being it a technology, being it an operation or people, the role of leader is to make sure that the direction is defined, strategy is defined, and it is followed, and operation is aligned to them. Yep. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any question? Okay, ma'am wants to talk.
Sure.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Dr. Swati John. I'm the Assistant Dean at MIT Pune. First of all, I would like to thank for the thought which came in your mind that you want to address students from so far, and that thought itself, and with the association of Kirki ma'am, you planned it and you actually made it happen. So thank you so much for that thought and that knowledge which you have shared with the student. It was really inspiring. It was really knowledgeable, and I think all of them really require this information, that how sensitive technology and these things are making, and how businesses are so frequently changing. And your talk has actually emphasized on those aspects very seriously on those things. So thank you so very much for your time. I know it's very late over there, so waking you up at the wrong hours.
That's all good. I mean, thank you so much for inviting me. It has been such a pleasure. And
Thank you.
before I go, I want to leave one thought with the students. All right. Being an MBA student, and particularly in business, think about how technology will affect your career. All right. Whether you go in business, whether you go in job, whether you go in whatever era that you have. My wife uses ChatGPT to write the daily report for the children she looks after. Now that's how penetrated technology has become. So when you leave this room, have this thought: how technology is going to change next 5 years. Forget about the whole career, but next 5 years of your career. Are you going to utilize technology to grow or accelerate your career, or is it going to become a blocker in your career? Because it will totally depend on how you use it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so very much. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Prashant.
Thank you. Bye.